Dan Illman, Matt Bernier, race number 8 at Santa Anita on Sunday is the Grade 3 Las Flores Stakes for fillies and mares traveling 6 furlongs. If you bet the race and the card with a DRF Bets account and you deposit $50, you bet with $200. With DRF Bets, it's as easy as ready, set, bet. Let's meet the field for the Grade 3 Las Flores, and Bob Baffert is hoping for a bounce-back proposition for the number 7, Dream Tree. Dream Tree began her career with 5 consecutive wins, and if not for a breathing problem, would have been one of the favorites in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. She missed that race. She did come back in the La Brea, and she was awful. I don't know what happened that day. Baffert seems confident that Dream Tree is going to bounce back to her best, and she is getting a little bit of drop in class, but boy, it's tough to take a short price off of such a bad race.
And I don't even know what we're going to get really from her. What is her sort of going rate as far as the race is concerned? Is she the 100 buyer in the Prioress, or is she somewhere between the 100 and sort of her typical low 80 kind of buyer situation? If that's the case, she's no standout by any stretch of the imagination in a race like this. The La Brea was terrible. When the real running began, she just never picked her feet up. She just completely dropped anchor. And the Prioress, her sort of big blowout victory to date, that race has come back dreadful. So I don't know what you want to do with her. She's going to be a short price in here. She could certainly win, don't get me wrong, but I just don't know how short I would take.
Let's go down to the rail. Amuse is 2 for 2 at Santa Anita. She's got all the upside potential. Beautifully bred daughter of Medaglia d'Oro going out for Dick Mandela. Winner last time out, the 4th place finisher, has since come back to win a 1X with an 81 buyer speed figure. She's hovering around the low 80s buyers, but something tells me that she might be ready to move forward into the upper 80s. Now, whether that's good enough to win this race, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking Amuse, if she can work out a trip from the rail, is going to run well.
Yeah, she's going to need to take that step forward. I do think a high 80, low 90 is going to be good enough to get the job done or put you right there. And if she does that, she has every right to improve. You brought it up. She's really done nothing wrong in 4 lifetime starts. She loves Santa Anita. I'm just waiting for that forward move because each of the past 3 races, to me, from a number standpoint, for the most part, they've been carbon copies.
Let's throw up the Timeform U.S. pace projector for this year's Las Flores Stakes. We see the 6, Danska's Little Girl, out there on the early lead. Raging form for Jerry Hollendorfer. This horse has won her last 2 starts. Last time out, they stretched her out to a mile. That had to be at least a little bit of a question mark in the minds of the connections. She went fast early. She took a lot of heat. She kept on going. That was a very game performance. Now, she is stepping up into stakes competition for the first time, but she actually ran a faster race 2 starts back sprinting. If Dream Tree doesn't fire, maybe Danska's Little Girl can sneak away from him.
Yeah, perhaps she can get brave out there. From a class standpoint, I think she's a little bit compromised compared to some of the other girls in this spot. But again, this is one of those instances. A graded stakes placing is a hell of a lot more important than anything else, especially for a horse like this, who for the longest time was in the maiden ranks. She's in good form right now. The slight turn back in distance I don't think is going to be an issue. I think she's forwardly placed. We'll find out when the real running begins. Does she sort of crack under the pressure?
Expected to pressure her in the early portion. The 10 Moon Kitty. She's won 3 out of her last 4 races. Another one stepping up in class. She was claimed for $32,000 back in September. Great job by Jack Carava. She took some heat last time out, going 5 furlongs at Del Mar, but that was back on November the 29th, and now she catches a race where if she utilizes her speed and gets hooked up, she might be a little bit tired late when the classier horses start calling.
It'll be interesting to see what we get. I think the outside draw is going to be advantageous for her. I think you want to use your position early, get up there, push the 6 horse, but not get into a prolonged speed duel. If you do that, obviously it's not going to work. But if there's a chance that you think that you are just more talented inherently than a horse like Danuska's Girl, I think you just go out there and you say maybe she's going to crack at some point and you could take this thing and overturn her for home. And then, again, you got to deal with the big horses at that point. But look, I think you just play it out that way and you see what happens.
I am a huge fan of the 5, Phantom Proton. She was second to Marley's Freedom, only beaten 2 and change in April. Neil Drysdale had her in great form back then. I loved the way she came back to win her next start. Then I liked her in the Great Lady M Stakes, and she ran well again behind Marley's Freedom, finishing 3rd, beaten less than 5 lengths. And after that, just things didn't go right, and I love that Drysdale stopped on her. It was almost as if Phantom Proton was saying, listen, I've given you 3-4 hard efforts in a row. I'm exhausted. I need a break. I have a feeling that this horse is going to come back fresh and show speed and maybe actually try to take the lead early.
If that's the case, then that throws a little bit of a wrinkle into the whole pace situation. That could potentially help some of these horses coming from a little bit farther off of it. I like how honest she is. She shows up and gives you what she's got. Now, my concern is when she really rounded into form, she only had one race that was, I don't even want to say exceptionally fast, but into the low 90 range. The other races surrounding that are in the low 80 range, high 70. That kind of number is not going to be fast enough to get it done. But if she is sort of upwardly mobile early, she could be interesting.
The last time we saw a spectator in Southern California, she finished second behind Midnight Bizou in the Grade 1 Santa Anita Oaks. They sent her to New York after that race, and she just didn't run well for whatever reason, and she must have gotten injured after the test, which was a quality race in its own right. Mia Mischief came back to run second in the Prioress, and it didn't help in the test when she completely missed the break. That race is a throw-out effort. What are we going to get off the long layoff? Because this is a horse, we were big fans of her at 2.
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of the X factor in this race because her best, and if you think she's going to improve on her early 3-year-old form that we saw, whether it was in that N2X or even in that runner-up in the Santa Anita Oaks, then she's a major player in this race. If she shows up with the New York form, I don't think she's anywhere. Your guess is as good as mine. I think you have to view it as a positive that Flavien Prat is signed on to ride here for Phil D'Amato. I would expect her to run well. The interesting thing is going to be, again, from a pace situation, where is she positioned? Because in New York, she just was completely void of any speed.
Lady Subi's stepping up in class, or is she? Because in her last 2 races, she took on Belvoir Bay. And Belvoir Bay, after she won the Las Ciénegas, an off-the-turf race, came back to beat Lady Subi in the Wishing Well with a 100 buyer. And then we saw her run a super race in the Alquaz Sprint in Dubai on the Dubai World Cup undercard. My one concern about Lady Subi is I kind of think she's better on turf.
I was going to say, for me, it really boils down to surface. Is this what she wants, or is she better on the grass? Not that she's incapable on the main track, but I think she's going to need her absolute A effort to get it done. But like you said, I mean, there's no Belvoir Bay in here. There are nice horses, but Belvoir Bay, the form that she's in right now, she's just cooking along. So this could be a little bit of sneaky class relief.
I wonder if there was a hint that something was amiss with True Royalty after she won the Grade 3 Torrey Pines, and in her very next start, they turned her back, switched her to turf, and moved her down the hill. It was really a weird move for a horse that had just won a graded stakes race on the dirt. Her last 2 races have been dreadful. Can this horse run anymore?
Your guess, again, is as good as mine based on what we saw in that most recent run going 2 turns. That was a disaster, but admittedly against better horses and over a wet track, so maybe that's not the barometer that you want to use. And then the Raven Run preceded a long layoff. So I suppose there's a chance that you could go through and say she's very dirtied up, and the most representative run for her is that Torrey Pines where she won by more than 3 lengths. The problem for me is, boy, that was all the way back at the end of August last year.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 3 Las Flores Stakes. Boy, you're on the other Baffert kick. All weekend long. Santa Anita Derby, and now here in the Las Flores. You like Emboldened, and you know something, there's a lot to like about Emboldened. I thought Joe Talamo was too aggressive last time out in the La Brea, where he just mid-moved on the rail to get involved in a pace dispute with 3 other horses to her outside, and she was still punching along at the end of that race. Now, she's going to have to deal with a layoff, but she's won fresh in the past, and I like the fact that she's versatile. You can do whatever you want with her. I just don't want Joe to move too early.
And you know what? I might also be a little bit too bullish on her. When she debuted, I remember turning to you and saying, this might be an Oaks kind of filly. And you know what? She came back and she disappointed in the N1X. She was gone for a little while, but then she came back and aired in that Angels flight, and then she was gone again. So clearly there's been some physical issues. I'm curious if at the end of the day they'll keep her at 1-turn configurations. I'd love to see them try to stretch her out at some point, but first things first, in this race, I think if she runs a La Brea, I think she's right there at the wire. I think she's every bit as talented as Dream Tree. I think she's every bit as talented as some of the other girls in here. And again, the versatility. She can be forward or she can come from a little bit farther off of it. Again, maybe I'm overrating her. It's entirely possible, but she's so lightly raced. I like what I've seen from her.
Give me some numbers.
I'm going to go 8-7-9-2.
Speaking of that, now there's one other than race that Emboldened was beaten in the favorite. Showdown Mowat was the one that beat her that day, and Showdown Mowat has won her last 2 races, albeit against weaker competition. Kind of a weird race last time out in that Spring Fever, wasn't it? Kind of a field of turf horses, and she was drifting out on the backstretch, but once she got to the outside, she was able to finish it nicely over a useful horse in SY Sky. I like this outside post better for her. I think she can keep an eye on what's going on inside. If they don't want to go to the lead, that's fine. She's capable of sitting off of it. From a class standpoint, yeah, it's a little bit of a question, no doubt about it. And maybe the 7's a bit far, but I think Show It and Mo it's going to offer a little bit of value. The way I'm looking at this race is like you, Dream Tree has to prove it to me. I would not be surprised at all if she just runs off the screen and wins by 10. But I'm playing Show It and Mo It. I'm using Embolden, my second choice in this race, and I'm going 9, 8, 10 in the Grade 3 Las Flores Stakes, one of the feature races at the big race place, great race place on Saturday. Bet it with a DRF Bets account. It's been a long week. Deposit 50, bet with 200 at bets.drf.com. Approximate post time for Sunday's Las Flores, 4:30 Pacific. Good luck.